All right, and once we have the structure for both, for auth as well as jobs, now what we can do, at least in my case, I'm going to close all the tabs just so it's less busy here. And I'm going to navigate to a Postman and we'll test it out. Whether we're getting back all those dummy strings. Because if everything's in place, if everything works, then like I said, start setting up the model and one by one, we'll start working in the controllers. So I'm going to navigate back to the Postman. As you can see, I have a clear workspace. I have no collections. And in this case, I don't think I'm going to use the environment. I'm just going to set up everything globally. Again, if you know how to set up an environment, you can definitely do so, but that's not going to be my case. Just keep in mind that eventually, once we save the token here in the Postman, I'm going to use the global approach. So I'm going to save it as a global variable. So if you are going with the environment, your code is going to be a little bit different, but of course, I'm going to cover once we get there. And for starters, I want to create a collection. I'm going to give it some kind of name. In my case, I'm going to go with Jobify. And let me go with all uppercase, just because. Then we want to set up two more folders here. So we want to go with add folder. And in this case, I'm going to go with jobs. And then the second one will be the auth one. So one more folder. Let's add a folder. And let's go with auth. So I'm going to go with rename and then auth. And let's actually start working in the auth, because I think it's going to be a little bit faster. And in here, let's add a request. So it's not going to be a GET request. Right from the get-go, we want to give it different names. So say register user. And it's not going to be a GET request, like I said. It's going to be a POST request. And since we're pretty much going to be repeating the localhost 5000 and then the API version 1 and all that, why don't we set it up as a global variable right from the get-go? And you can do that by clicking on this eye. And where we have the globals, let's just go with add. And I'm going to go with URL, and then initial value is going to be following, where I'm going to navigate to my localhost 5000. I should see the welcome. I do. So that's an awesome start. And then let's copy and paste. And like I said, we're going to go with API and then version 1. And then we'll go with /auth /jobs. And hopefully you get the gist. I'll save this one. Then back in the register user, I have the post request, which is awesome. And then if I want to access the URL, I'm going to go with double curlies. And then I'm going to close this one. And then I'll go with / and then auth. And then more specifically, I'm looking for the register one. Now, eventually I'll pass in some values, but not for now. So I'm just going to send it. And if I can see register user, we are already on the right path. That means that the URL is working. That means that the register function is going to work eventually. And if I'm not going to make some egregious errors, that also means that pretty much the rest of the routes are going to be good to go as well. So now in this case, I just want to copy this one. And then I'll rename this one. And by the way, instead of renaming, I actually went with copy one more time. In here, let's go with rename. And then let's call this login. Still going to be a post request. So that stays the same. Let me remove these tabs here so I have a little bit more real estate. And login, post request, instead of the register. We're looking for a login. Again, we send. Yep, we have login user. That's awesome. And then let's copy this one more time. Let's rename it right away. And we'll say update user. Now this one will be patch. So let me make sure that I actually navigate to this one. And then I'll close the login one, patch here. And then let's go with update user. And then I'll mess up some things on a purpose, just so we can see whether our error handling, meaning the route does not exist, works. And as you can see right away, even without doing anything, I actually have route does not exist. So this is the case where I need to go back and check it out. What was my actual route? So back in the auth routes, I have update user / and this should be update user. And for some reason in auth and then update user, I have doesn't exist. And the reason for that is following, where I didn't set up as patch. My apologies. You see how easy it is to make a mistake. So I was going to mess with this one, the HTTP verb in here in the Postman, but I didn't have to do that since I have a bug here in the auth routes. So that's how we can know that everything works as far as our error handling as well. So now I can clearly see update user, which is what I was expecting. So that should do it for the auth. Now we want to do the same thing for the jobs. So let's go with add request. The first one will be create job, and this one will be a post request. And we'll use the same URL here. So URL, and then / and then jobs, because remember that was our root route. So let's save this one, send it, and yep, we have create job. So now let's keep on moving. And basically, I'll just duplicate them. I believe I had 5, correct? So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then one more. So let's do that. Or no, for some reason I decided to delete. That's not what I wanted. So now I have 5 of them, one by one. I just need to change them around. Where, first of all, this is not going to be create job. We'll say get all jobs. Then we will set up a get request. So this is going to be for all the jobs. Let's send that. Yep, we have get all jobs. That's awesome. Then we want to go with, let's go with stats here. We're going to go with stats. I'm going to call this show stats. And this is going to be a get request. And let's send it. Yep, we have show stats. And then we have one for update and one for delete. So we're going to go here with jobs. And then I'll just pass in some dummy value. I'll say 1, 2, 3. So that's going to be my ID. Now this will be a patch one. And the name here is going to be update job. Update job. Let's send that. Yep. And then lastly, we have one for delete as well. So delete job. And then let's do the same thing. 1, 2, 3. And instead of post, we're going to be looking for delete. Let's save all of them before I forget. And then let me go back to delete. Let's send that. And I can clearly see delete job. And once we test everything, once we can clearly see that we're getting the correct values, now we can start setting up our first model.